Hi, folks. Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the extent to which every mass event that we see in the West today is probably pre-planned and pre-scripted and pre-organized, so that they're all waiting in the room ready for the door to be opened so they can come filing out with their placards and their scripts. Now, we see this in things like January 6th and various other things where there's a contrived, scripted, stage-managed false flag, where there's allegedly some, an insurrection or kidnapping a governor or something like that. And these things just look at just a little bit too beautifully stage managed, and you go, wow, how does that all fall into place with the media on the spot just when you need them, the photographs, the footage, the speeches for the politicians, everything just seems to be very choreographed. Maybe it is natural, but it doesn't look like it is. It appears to be choreographed. Now, I thought the same thing over the entire George Floyd incident, how the response and you can't have riots occur almost immediately following the incident, which was a career criminal who's in a very, very agitated state, is being restrained by a police officer who follows police policy, and yet that somehow the footage of that turns into rioting. Now, I was having a look at the riots, even at the time and subsequently. The rioting kicked off very quickly, and if you look at the timeline of the riots, somehow the rioters had all their helmets and their uniforms. They had the placards, they had the signs. The politicians were out so quickly of what appeared to be a pre-arranged script, carefully coordinated. The cities that had the biggest BLM riots appear to have local governments and the local mayor and that sort of thing. It was incredibly sympathetic to it, just allowed it to go on, wouldn't allow the state troopers or any federal assistance. And this all seemed to be very choreographed. And how can they get such professionally made signs and have it out to the protesters so quickly with their uniforms and their helmet? Some of these people couldn't afford any one of those articles of clothing. So where did that come from? So there was a certain amount of organizing, certain amount of choreography, a lot of preparation and planning went into this. But we're supposed to believe that as a result of the George Floyd incident, again, a career criminal in a very agitated state being restrained by a police officer with witnesses, and that restraint was the policy of the police department there. And now, if it was a white person being restrained, who cares? But given it was a black person, a career criminal, and suddenly it was an incident. But nonetheless, it just seemed to just roll out so quickly, and so it seemed professional. It was just organized, scripted, planned, choreographed. Everything seemed to go according to what some may say was a plan. Now, the attempt to the desperate attempt by the media, the globalist control media, and some of the politicians to pretend that it was it's grassroots, legitimate concerns by legitimate people legitimately concerned about the situation of evil fascist Nazi cops and all that sort of thing. I just didn't buy it. It was just too choreographed. So I recently came across what appears to be, so it's a couple of years past the thing now, but a smoking gun type thing where there was a number of NGOs, the Soros-funded type stuff. There's a number of NGOs that were training street-level agitators and if you like, group leaders. These are the people with the bullhorns who get up and say, let's march over there, or let's do this, let's do that, or hey, here's the truck with the placards. Let's get the placards, or whatever. Let's go and burn down the police station. That's something that did happen. So people that are in there and they've been given their script, and they get the crowd to go along, and they kind of direct the traffic. You could call them, I don't know, traffic marshals or something like that. But they're agitators and coordinators and leaders. Unofficial, ostensibly, no one knows but they've been given that training. These are things you say to the crowd to get them going. This is how you stir this up. This is how you get such and such to happen. And so they've been given specialist agitator, stirrer, protest leader training, special training, and time and effort and expenses being gone to here. And these are the people that are being let loose in these certain areas to whip up a crowd, get a crowd in the street quickly, get them holding the placards, and get the whole choreography going. So just before the George Floyd incident, or in the few months leading up to it, all this effort, and quite intense effort and expense, was being made to train and prepare these armies of street agitators, street infiltrators and stirrers and so on. And this was, now maybe the George Floyd incident was an act, something they were just looking for, anything would have done. Excuse me, anything would have done. Oh God, am I going to start the video? No, I'll keep on going. Anything would have done, any incident would have been sufficient, but the Floyd incident came along, and they thought, we'll use that, because it was a really an odd incident to use for such a drama. I mean, the guy's a career criminal in a highly agitated state. What is any police officer going to do other than restrain them? Police officers tried to get the guy into the car, he wouldn't go, and it's so what else is a police officer going to do, really? So it was an unusual incident. I thought it was not an ideal incident for creating this, but then there was this choreographed thing, people doing murals of George Floyd, politicians coming out, black politicians running around, directly trying to intimidate judicial proceedings and so on. It all had a very surreal, I thought, look about it. But again, it comes back. It was planned. They needed this incident. They wanted it. They were planning it. They were itching for an incident just like this. And I think if one hadn't come along, then they would have invented one. It didn't really matter. And this was, now if you go then look at the NGOs that were backing this, involved in this, there appears to be a very genuine concern that there may be an upcoming presidential election that could produce a result that the globalists didn't want, and that they were doing and prepared to push as much collateral damage as it took around American society, or elsewhere for that matter, to ensure that the outcome that the globalists did want occurred. And this was simply part of that wider process of achieving that outcome, and particularly of reducing law and order and so on. Now, when you've got a reduced number of police and this sort of level of activism, then you can engage in other activities that may otherwise attract the attention of the law, but would be, given the circumstances of the riots and so on, other illegal activities. That doesn't matter. We haven't got the resources to go and chase it anyway. So these are some of the wider issues. But I'm sort of moving to the conclusion now that whole BLM riot thing was an entirely pre-planned, pre-organised, with trained cadres and apparatchiks and insurgents and so on, who were fanning out across the United States, ready for an incident, just as the George Floyd one. Now, whether the George Floyd one itself was choreographed, or whether or not there was it would just happen to conveniently come along when they would have maybe they'd choreographed and planned something else, and then the George Floyd thing happened. Hey, we'll use that. Don't worry about the other thing. That'll do us for now. So something like that, I believe, occurred. And I think it needs to be investigated. You've been a Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.